Islamic civilization has left an indelible mark on human history for the past 1400 years. So it should be no surprise that the military element of its past has been hugely consequential. Battles have taken place that shaped the destiny of entire regions across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Some are well known, whilst others are underappreciated. So I've decided to come up with a list of 15 different sieges and battles, land and naval, which can be considered the 15 greatest in terms of scope, but more importantly consequence. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. Long-time viewers of the channel will know that I don't touch Islamic history pre-661 AD, so I'm afraid Badr, Yarmouk or Qadisiyah will not feature. And remember, these are my observations. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below which battles I missed out. With that being said, let's begin. Number 15, the First Battle of Panipat in 1526. This saw the arrival of the Mughals to the Indian subcontinent. Their leader, Babar, had seen numerous attempts to regain his kingdom in Central Asia fail. After establishing himself in Afghanistan, he sought the riches of India like his ancestor Timur had. In his way stood the Delhi Sultanate, under the leadership of the Afghan Ibrahim Lodi. Using his superior weaponry, in the shape of firearms and cannons, Babar was able to defeat the much bigger Indian army. The Mughals, with their Turco-Persian roots, would reshape Indian culture forever. It turns out Panipat is a pretty important place because there were 3 pivotal battles that took place there. The first Battle of Panipat would have placed much higher on this list had it secured Mughal rule in India, but in reality Babar still had 2 very important battles to fight at Khanwa and Gagra. Number 14, the Battle of Tours in 732. This is a favourite of what if historians. The Battle of Tours in 732 between the Umayyads and the Franks took place in central France and marks the furthest expansion point of the Islamic conquests. The Franks, under the rule of Charles Martel, the grandfather of Charlemagne, decisively defeated the Muslims, in the process checking their expansion into France. The battle has been seen by some as having saved Western Europe from Muslim conquest, but in reality, I think the importance of this battle is overblown. The Muslims had established a presence in the southernmost tip of France, but the force that met Charles Martel's army was well into enemy territory, thereby making it difficult to sustain their campaign because of a lack of supplies or bases. Also, the Germanic tribes to the east would have been a menacing task to face up to as well, as the Romans found out the hard way. And the fact that the Umayyad Khilafah had structural issues with its rule that were soon to be exposed by the Berber Revolt and the Abbasid Revolution in the next decade or so. You can find out more about the Battle of Tours and my thoughts on it in the video that I did a few years ago. I'll put the link in the description. Number 13, the Battle of Talas in 751. This saw the unusual combination of Arab forces fighting against the Chinese. The Battle of Talas was a clash between the newly established Abbasids and the Tang dynasty of China. It was won by the Abbasid forces once some of the local Turkic tribes defected from the Chinese to the Arab side. The battle allowed the Abbasids to get a dominant position in Central Asia, a pivotal region due to its location on the Silk Road. In addition to further opening up Central Asia to its eventual Islamization, the Battle of Talas is famous because legend has it that paper-making technology was brought to the Middle East and then onto Europe by Chinese prisoners of war captured during the battle. This is another battle which has consistently been listed as an all-time great, but I think it's been over-romanticized. The Tang dynasty were recuperating from Talas and were getting ready to send another army into Central Asia when the An Lushan rebellion broke out in 755. Posing an existential threat to the imperial dynasty. Also, the issue of the paper-making technology has not been confirmed. Number 12, the Battle of Ain-Jalut in 1260. At the time, the Mongols seemed almost invincible. Within a few decades, their realm stretched across the span of Asia and even into Europe. But at Ain Jalut, aptly named after the place where David was believed to have defeated the giant Goliath, the Mongols were decisively defeated by Mamluks who used the same fake retreat tactic that the Mongols were famous for on their adversaries. It is considered by many historians as a turning point in history, so it is probably surprising for you to hear Ain Jalut rank so low in this list, but just hear me out. Contrary to what is sometimes believed in popular Muslim imagination, the Islamic world was not in existential danger from the Mongols. It is true that much of the Islamic world fell under their rule, but there still existed independent Muslim states such as the Delhi Sultanate in India and the Marinids of the Maghreb. Also, many Mongols eventually converted to Islam. In fact, 3 out of the 4 Mongol Empire subdivisions eventually had rulers that were Muslim. And even though the Mamluks became major rivals to Mongol ambitions in the Middle East, the battle's result did not hit home as much as people think, because a civil war was brewing amongst Genghis Khan's grandsons that was deemed far more important. If you want to see how bad my early videos were, check out the video I did on Ain Jalut a few years ago. Number 11. The Siege of Delhi in 1303. This is a pretty underrated one. At the time, India was ruled by Alauddin Khilji, an intrepid conqueror of the Delhi Sultanate dynasty. He had already seen off multiple major invasions of his North Indian territories by the Central Asian-based Mongol Chagatai Khanate. In 1303, as he was away on campaign in Rajasthan, Khilji received word that a large Mongol army up to 40,000 strong under the command of General Taragai was headed for his capital at Delhi. Unable to make adequate preparations even as he hurried back to Delhi, Khilji realized he could not confront the Mongols in an outright battle, especially as one of his armies had already been sent south on a separate campaign. Even if he had called them back, it would have made little difference, since the Mongols had set up blockades on all roads leading to Delhi. So he based his forces in the Siri fort, just outside the capital. The Mongol army then charged at his camp more than once, but to no avail. Khilji held his position. Regardless of this, the Mongols were able to enter certain parts of the capital, ransacking and looting the royal stores. But in the end, Taragai and his Mongols realized Khilji's army could not be baited out into an open battle, so the longer they spent in hostile territory, the more danger they'd be in. So they pulled out and returned back to Central Asia. Even though nothing bad came of this campaign for the Delhi Sultanate, it served as a wake-up call for Alauddin Khilji. The near conquest of his capital forced him to strengthen his military frontier with the Chagatai Khanate. Old forts were repaired, new forts were built, and more soldiers were stationed along it. He also instituted economic reforms so that he could maintain a strong standing army in case of a Mongol threat. And after 1303, he rarely left his capital on campaign, in stark contrast to the period before it. Number 10. The Battle of Vienna, 1683. Fought between the Ottomans and a Christian coalition that included the powerful Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the Holy Roman Empire, the battle itself came at the end of a 2-month-long siege of the crucial city of Vienna by the Ottomans. The Christian coalition won a major victory against their Ottoman counterparts when the Polish-Lithuanian ruler, Jan Sobieski III, arrived with his relief army and attacked the besieging Ottomans. The battle signified the beginning of the Great Turkish War, which would carry on for another 15 years, at the end of which the Treaty of Karlowitz rubber-stamped the Ottoman defeat. Europe could breathe a sigh of relief as the threat of a deeper Ottoman push into Christendom was effectively terminated. Whilst the Ottoman threat was still not over, Vienna is often considered as the beginning of a long Ottoman decline that saw their realm dwindle slowly but surely. A lot is made of this battle's importance in popular imagination because it stemmed the tide of Islam in Europe. But I'm skeptical. Even if they had been successful, the Ottomans still had a number of competent foes to face if they wanted to further their conquests into the heartland of Christendom. And not to mention, they were already severely overstretched. Number 9. The Battle of Manzikert in 1071. Fought between the Byzantines and the Seljuk Turks, it is famous for initiating the Turkification of Anatolia. The battle, which took place in eastern Anatolia, was won by the Seljuks as a result of their cavalry-heavy tactics and betrayal within the Byzantine ranks. Within 10 years of Manzikert, Turks would occupy cities as far west as Nicaea, only 100 kilometers away from Constantinople. The overall impact of 11th century Turkic migration to the Middle East is tough to undermine, changing demographics as well as setting up powerful states. The Byzantines would recover under the Komnenos dynasty over the next 100 years, but their traditional base of power, Anatolia, had been severely undermined by the introduction of the Turks after Manzikert. Check out the collab I did with Matt from Useful Charts for more on this battle. Number 8. The Battle of the Zab in 750. The Umayyads had created one of the largest empires in human history, expanding the Muslim conquests to their maximum extent. Their realm extended from France in the west to India in the east. But such an impressive feat also brought about problems. Territories on the periphery started to clamour for greater independence, with the Berbers of the Maghreb revolting a decade before. This issue was compounded by the Umayyads' negligence. Many non-Arab groups felt discriminated against by their Arab rulers in Damascus. So when the Abbasids began their revolt in the faraway eastern province of Khorasan in 747, they were enthusiastically supported by many citizens of the Khilafah who were disgruntled with the Umayyads. By 750, the insurrection had moved towards the Umayyad heartland in Syria, culminating in a battle near the Zab River. The Abbasids decisively defeated their foes, forcing the last Umayyad Khalif, Marwan II, to flee to Egypt, where he was killed shortly after. This battle would have been placed way higher if it was solely responsible for bringing the Abbasids to power. After Zab, it was the Abbasids' turn to lead the Muslim Ummah. As the first order of business, they hunted down any Umayyad royal house members that could threaten their position. They did, however, fail in capturing the young prince Abdul Rahman, who would go on to establish the Cordoban Emirate in Al-Andalus. Under the Abbasids, the Islamic world experienced a golden age, which produced renowned scholars such as Al-Khwarizmi and Ibn Hayyan. Number 7. The Battle of Diu in 1509. With Columbus's discovery of America, Europe's appetite for naval supremacy and trade became insatiable. Throughout the 16th century, the Portuguese were at the forefront of this development. Ever since Vasco da Gama's voyage to India via the Cape of Good Hope in the late 1490s, they had aggressively sought to colonize key port cities in the Indian Ocean. The Battle of Diu played an immense role in facilitating this. Portuguese maritime activity in the Indian Ocean was seriously disrupting the interests of various states, chiefly the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt, Venice, and the South Indian Kingdom of Calicut. So with the help of the Venetians, whose trade the Portuguese were undercutting, the Mamluk Sultan sent a fleet to help the Sultan of Gujarat, an important middleman in the thriving trade between Malacca in the east and Egypt in the west. At Diu in Gujarat, Western India, the two sides met and it became abundantly clear that Portuguese naval technology was far superior to their foes. Bolstered by the use of state-of-the-art ships, better equipped and experienced sailors, as well as more gunpowder weaponry, the Portuguese were able to decimate their opponents. Shortly afterwards, they were able to establish colonies across the Indian Ocean, with Goa, Ceylon, Hormuz, and Malacca all falling in the next few decades. The consequences were massive. The Portuguese had severely undermined the age-old land route of the Silk Road and ushered in a new age of maritime trade which would give Europe the ascendancy over states that still relied upon overland trade. Number 6. The Siege of Constantinople in 1453. This is one of the most famous victories for Islam against the Christian power. Ascending to the Ottoman throne 2 years prior, Mehmed II placed the conquest of the famed city high on his list of priorities. A number of his predecessors had besieged the Byzantine capital, but the walls of Constantinople always stood firm. Mehmed had a remedy for this. Having planned it for 2 years, he ordered the construction of large cannons that would blast the walls of the blockaded city. For 7 weeks, the Byzantine defenders desperately tried to resist the Turks. Finally, on Tuesday the 29th of May, 1453, Janissary troops entered through a breach in the walls opened by cannon fire. The Second Rome had fallen to the Muslims. Mehmed II became Mehmed Fatih, the conqueror, and the Ottomans were now ready to fulfill Osman's dream. This would be much higher up in the list had it not been for the fact that Byzantium was on its last leg for a while, and its conquest by the Turks seemed a matter of when, not if, for at least 5 decades before this. Number 5. The Battle of Chaldiran in 1514. Pitting the forces of the Ottomans against the newly rising Safavids of Persia, this battle had major implications for the future of the Middle East. In the end, it was the Ottoman superior technology which decided the day, as they won a resounding victory over their Shia Safavid counterparts. Some of you might be surprised at how highly this is ranked, but if we take into consideration that the victor would dominate the Middle East for the next 400 years, something that was hugely important considering the Ottomans were Sunnis and the Safavids were Shia interested in extending their creed. In addition, the Safavid defeat was a great relief to the Ottomans, who had been gravely concerned at the meteoric rise of their eastern neighbour in the decade before. The Safavid Shah, Ismail, had fostered agitation within Ottoman-controlled Anatolia that understandably distressed the Ottoman Sultan. The Ottoman victory also prevented the joining of the Mamluks of Egypt and Syria with the Safavids. Over the next 3 years, the Ottomans defeated the Mamluks as well, and added both Syria and Egypt to its realm, allowing them to take advantage of the Nile's productive capacity as well as the Levant's strategic position along trade routes. Feel free to check out the video I made on Chaldiran a few years ago. I'll put the link in the description below. Number 4. The Battle of Tarain in 1192. This underrated battle was fought between the Muslim Ghurids led by Muizz al-Din Ghuri and a Hindu confederacy under Prithviraj Chauhan just north of Delhi. The battle ended with a decisive Ghurid victory, which was a reversal of the last time the two sides had fought at Tarain a year before. The rich and abundant Gangetic plain of northern India was now open to the Ghurids. They didn't have much time to enjoy the fruits of their labour, since the base of their empire in Afghanistan came under attack by the Central Asian Khwarezmians, who themselves would incur the wrath of none other than Genghis Khan soon after. Tarain is especially important because it allowed the introduction of Muslim powers to establish their rule in Hindustan. Even though the Ghurid Empire soon crumbled, one of its leading generals, Qutbuddin Aybak, set up the Delhi Sultanate, which would go on to rule for 3 centuries before the Mughals came and dominated the subcontinent. Without the Ghurid victory at Tarain, the ascendance of later Muslim states in India may or may not have taken place. Number 3. The Battle of Guadalete in 711. Fought between the forces of the Visigoths of Iberia against the invading Umayyads, Guadalete would initiate the Muslim conquest of the peninsula. The Visigothic king, Roderick, was killed as his army was decimated by an Umayyad army that was composed largely of Berbers, led by Tariq ibn Ziyad. The victory paved the way for the Umayyads to conquer most of Iberia over the next 7 years. The reason this battle ranks so high, apart from the fact that I'm obsessed with Al-Andalus, is that Muslim rule of Iberia would prove to be hugely consequential for the history of Europe. Al-Andalus served as a nexus point between the Islamic East and Christian Europe. In the process, it transmitted some of the grandiose advancements Islamic civilization was making in subjects as diverse as philosophy, optics, astronomy, and agriculture. The Toledo school of translators worked tirelessly in the 12th and 13th centuries to translate works in Arabic to Latin and Old Spanish, thereby making them available to scholars across Western Europe to not only learn from the progress made by the Muslims, but also in some way rediscover classical knowledge. After all, many Muslim scholars were inspired or built upon the work of the ancient Greeks and Romans. Number 2. The Battle of Plassey in 1757. This was fought between the British East India Company and the Nawab of Bengal. By the mid-18th century, the once mighty Mughal Empire had begun to lose its grip on power, leading many of its territories to become independent in all but name. Out of all of these, the Bengal was perhaps the most important due to its productive capacity and its trade links. The British were not major competitors before 1757, but after their decisive victory at Plassey, they now had the rich province of Bengal at their disposal, leading them to A. stifle the ambitions of other European countries in India, and B. set about to get more aggressive in their dealings with the Mughal Emperor and other Indian rulers, thereby establishing the foundation for the future British conquest of the subcontinent. As would become a British colonial trademark, Plassey was won when they secured the defection of a key general of the Nawab to the British side. Interestingly, that general's name, Mir Jafar, has become synonymous with the term treason across the subcontinent even to this day. The battle's significance can be understood within the context of European imperialism, which would come to dominate the world until the mid-20th century, and India occupied the unenviable status of probably being the world's most sought-after colony. That brings us to number 1. The Siege of Constantinople in 717 and 718. The Muslims had had their eyes set on Constantinople from the onset of their conquests, with some even viewing it as the fulfillment of a prophecy. In the 670s, Khalif Muawiyah had launched a major siege of the city, which ultimately failed thanks in part to the new incendiary invention of Greek fire. The Byzantines had become the main rivals for the Umayyads, with the Muslims constantly raiding Anatolia to weaken their Greek counterparts. Thanks to something known as the 20 Years' Anarchy, the Umayyads benefited from intense internal instability within the Byzantine Empire, and so Khalif Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik launched an assault on Constantinople unlike any other before. This was a campaign of conquest, supported by a large land army as well as a naval force. The carefully planned operation took years of preparation. By the summer of 717, the Arab armies had besieged Constantinople on both the European and Asian sides of the city. Soon after, the Umayyad navy joined the action, sailing up the Bosporus so that they could put the city under a land and naval blockade. But Greek fire came to the Byzantine rescue once again, preventing the Arab navy from blockading the city by sea. By this point, winter had set in, and it was a particularly harsh one. Snow covered the ground for months. Even though the Arabs had brought immense supplies with them, they started to run out, resulting in famine and disease. In the spring of 718, however, the new Caliph, Omar ibn Abdulaziz, sent 2 more fleets from his African territories, laden with supplies to revive the assault. This backfired on the Arabs, when this new fleet's Christian Egyptian crew deserted to the Byzantine side. The new Byzantine emperor, Leo the Isaurian, who had initially deceived the Arabs into thinking he would support them, decided to take advantage of this and attacked the Umayyads. The Arab navy was helpless against Greek fire and was forced to retreat. Meanwhile, the Khilafah's armies had been defeated on both sides, with the Bulgars coming to their Byzantine allies' rescue and attacking the Umayyad army from behind in Thrace. The defeat was a major blow for the Khilafah, which had invested a lot of resources into the campaign. Had the Arabs cut off the head of the Byzantine Empire, it opens up so many possibilities. The Islamic conquest of southeastern Europe that took place under the Ottomans could have happened 700 years earlier. And if it did, what would this mean for the rest of Europe? The Iberian Peninsula had already been conquered by the Umayyads, so there was the possibility of an attack on Christian Europe from 2 sides. But all these possibilities came to nothing, and the Umayyads would be toppled 3 decades later. Constantinople proved to be unconquerable, for the time being at least. There you have it. That's my list of the 15 most important battles in Islamic history, excluding pre-661. This was a hard list to make, and I had to miss a few pivotal battles like the Battle of Dandanakan in 1040, the Battle of Ankara in 1402, the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, and even the Battle of Karnal in 1739. So let me know in the comment sections below which ones I missed out and which ones you think should be the top 15. As usual, I want to thank my patrons for their generous support. If you want to support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description to this video. Until next time, peace!